In 1915, women started to claim their voting rights. At that time, they had no privileges, they were considered inferior. In many countries, women's work was not legal. They were subjected to work on very long hours and with low salary. They could not aspire to any public office. In 1925, the role of women in the 1920s changed substantially because of the impact of the World War I. The women had to take over the jobs that the men had abandoned. The characteristic woman of the 20s is the so-called flapper, a woman who breaks with social convention, with what is established. In 1935, after the economic crisis, the roles of women were mostly housewives and children, and the labor market continued in the traditional way. They did everything to keep their families afloat. 75% of professional women were nurses or teachers, who remained as the traditional roles of women. In 1945, during and after the Second World War, at that time, the woman was forced to occupy the place of the man on a labor level and adapted his physical appearance, adapting the suits that belonged to the same man. The woman was able to adapt to the new context and a new way of life. In 1955, at the end of the war, the woman had taken a strong character, but when the men returned, they returned to deal to them. The woman had to be feminine at the same time as interesting, to fulfill without complaining the housework while her husband brought the money home, and especially to have children. In 1965, society begins to know that many women disagree with their status in society and the fact that society denies them studies or equality. Women's liberation groups are beginning to appear throughout the world along with peace movements. In 1975, the woman remained the property of men and wanted to claim as a subject, not as an object, and got the possibility of handling his own body and time. It transforms the horizon of many women and opens perspective that allow economic, psychological, and ideological vital changes to the achievement of their autonomy. In 1985, the woman began to cram the clubs with a casual and free style, and along with punk and rock came the woman's liberation. In 1995, the women were overwhelmed by the demands of the powerful working woman and began to think that in order to obtain good results, they must be more feminine. They were tired of the production and entered at a time of relaxation. They need to express their individuality. In 2005, new trends, challenges, and future actions were established to achieve equality of women's rights. The image of the woman as a housewife and mother is removed. Now is free and independent. In 2015, gender equality seems to be obtained. Women hold important positions in society with new opportunities to develop their capacities, fight against violence, and give voice to women in the home and in public and private decision-making spaces.